ma nüüd annaksin üle Maarin Ektermannile, kes modereerib seda vestlust, mis nüüd järgneb, ja me saame siia ühtlasi kutsuda siis Eva Liisa tagasi ja Krister Lundahl, Lundahl Seitl, siis 2 kunstnikku, kes samuti liituvad selle vestlusega, kellest juttu oli. Ja loomulikult Grete Arro, väga hea. Grete Arro, kas Grete on ka meie? Selge. Ja no ma kuulsin jah, et Gretel on vist äkki laps haige, et siis võib-olla ta ei saa, aga kui sa oled kusagil, loomulikult liitu meiega. Nii, ja siis...
Ja tere ka minu poolt, aitäh kutsumast. Me teeme selle vestluse inglise keeles. Ma loodan, et see on okei. Ja let's start. Hello. My name is Maarin Ektermann, and thank you again for inviting me here, and congratulations on this many years doing this project, and now it's almost like it's not a grande finale, you know, but it's a little nice break to see what's been happening and brainstorm together how to go further from here. But I would like to ask first, do this kind of like co-creative projects, do they require some kind of special kind of artists, or how to prepare artists and designers for this kind of initiatives? Maybe we can start with Maarin Seitl and Grete Arro.
All right, thank you so much. So your question was like, how can you prepare as an artist? Well, the thing is, and I think that what Hanna-Liis, what you said in your presentation is you cannot really fully prepare. And that's something, because what you were describing in your Ruka moment, when Sima was her name? Sima was her name. So it was a moment you could never prepare for. And this is something that I find very interesting, because I think there is something about what you did there is that you created a bridge to the child, but actually embodying childlike qualities in you, yourself. So, and I think what you had was like curiosity, creativity, connection, and courage. And these are actually qualities which are in internal family systems psychology defined as the core self, which is the undesirable part of you. And I think in grown-ups, this is something that we often lose. So I think as much, this project is as much about connecting with the childlike qualities as a grown-up, because what you did was to create that bridge. And I think the preparation is, how to prepare is to allow space for that to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I would say I would very much encourage the design education to include like co-design courses or facilitation courses, and especially like bringing in the youth and youngsters' perspective and how to actually include them. I think there is a process that needs to be understood, that needs to be analyzed, and I think we need to be more conscious of what we are doing, and to actually understand what we bring in. So I think in a lot of cases, we maybe don't understand exactly how we act in a certain situation, and together in a group, we could actually analyze this. And it's very important that we, as adults, we are always adults, so we can't pretend that we know what the child thinks. And we need to take many, many steps back in order for their ideas to come forward. And we need to prepare for that. Like, we need to create the mindset for it. We need to prepare the methods for it. And it's a hard process. And I do agree, you are never really ready for it. So in my projects, I usually over-plan, always. But then... I think I can use 10 methods. In reality, I can use 2. But this preparation is very necessary. You think through all the scenarios in your head, and you're ready at that situation to adapt to that particular group, to that particular individual. And in case of groups, it's very important that we that we understand that they're a group of individuals. And if we want to include everybody, then we need to actually prepare for it.
Jaa, kas minu mikrofon on sees, et siis ma võib-olla ei pea teist. Okay, so I think what I can add to that is that I think it comes through from both of your actually responses as well, that it is quite a lot about mindset as well. And maybe something that this example that I brought also taught me of kind of preparing, but also being ready that as I don't know what the other person who I meet how they will react, what they will need, what they will think, to really have a mindset of listening and changing my plans as I go along, that I cannot force my plans onto these other people. I can suggest, I can try to have, plan B and plan C, but I need to also be able to think on my feet and to not get overly stressed if things change. And this is hard, especially if you like to have, structure and plans and kind of scaffolding to support you, because that gives a sense of security. But unfortunately, I guess our job is a little bit specific in that way, and I think a lot of teachers can relate to that, a lot of people working with kids, that you cannot always be in a very safe space if you want to create a safe space. Like, you have to then maybe sometimes be able to lose control a little bit of your own plans and your own kind of vision to let other people in. Yeah.
Kristel, maybe would you like to add something to that, or?
No, not now. But...
Okay. I also wanted to ask, still continuing with the topic of preparing different sides from those projects, do you also need to prepare somehow participating children and youth who are part of those experiences? Do you need to say what is happening? How do you guide them through this great unknown that you have just described yet? Maybe I would target this question first to Eva Liisa.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's very important that if the children and youngsters are participating, that they know what they're participating in. And I am, especially in these kind of projects, it has to be voluntary. So, for example, this youth center, in this youth center, youngsters go there voluntarily. It's not a must. It's not a compulsory curriculum. They go there because they want to. And that's already the beginning. That's a big start. It has to be voluntary. And if they sign up for something, there has to be clarity of what is going to happen. I think there needs to be transparent communication and so on. And there has to be consent from them. And especially when I was working in Vivita, in this youth workshop, or how to say it.
Hello.
It's okay to also decide not to participate. So you also have to have always the freedom to not participate if you feel like this is not this is not how you want it to turn out. So that opportunity always has to be there. So we should never force anything onto someone, and now we all as a group have to do this one thing. It has to be voluntary. Yeah, and I think I would like to say that this is maybe goes again preparing adults for this, but I think I just wanted to say that there are two maybe misconceptions, and one is that adults usually tend to underestimate children and their ability, and the other end is that they overestimate. It means that we actually forget how long children and youngsters need in these projects to open up. And this is something I think I just wanted to highlight here, that it's all about the time, giving them time and to actually be creative and just try and maybe also fail. And not all projects take off, and does not have to be a grand exhibition museum, but it's more important that it's constantly kind of supported.
Maybe Hanna, you have something to add. How did you start preparing all the school children and families you worked with?
So
Double.
yeah, I get confused. Well, that's I was really thinking about that also in the context of this question, that what we decided to do was to first, we contacted the schools and we tried to find these partner classes from different schools. So then once we had the network of teachers, these class teachers who were willing to participate, we first started with individual interviews with them, and it was really more like a meeting, a discussion to get to know each other. At any point they had the right to say, no, I don't want to participate, or I feel like this project is not for me. And once they felt comfortable with me, with our team, then we went to the schools and we met the classes, and we did a day of observation and a first workshop with them in school. So they were in their environment that they knew. They had a chance to meet us. They had a chance to come up to us during the day and just to chat and get to know us, and then do some activities with us. So it was kind of a step-by-step, and it wasn't, let's say, like, I can't tell you this is the method exactly that, is written perfectly and we used. We kind of came up with that in these little steps. Once we saw what was happening in schools, what we found, what we heard from the teachers and the kids, we then went on to the next step. And of course, because the artists were creating and coming up with their projects, we then gently started introducing the artists and already we had the observation notes and the meetings, so we tried to brief the artists through that as well.
Yes, hello. Grete, hello. We were just talking about how to prepare artists and designers for those kind of co-creative projects, and also how to prepare other parts like teachers, participating youth, children, etc. So that's the stage of our discussion right now. But maybe I would ask you straight from here, how do you see, what kind of unique contributions can these kind of projects done by artists and designers offer to educational system that it cannot achieve on its own, or learning process in general?
Yeah, actually, we also can start from the question why humankind invented art. Actually, have
Great.
you ever?
Let's solve this.
Yeah, let's solve this. Actually, I think we know it, but I don't know. What's your guess? Why we have art? Why we need art?
I think everybody's minds explode.
Yes, yes. What is the purpose of art? Is it do we do something for others, or do we do something for ourselves? Because I really love those scientists who study executive functions of the functions of prefrontal cortex, and they discovered that all kind of activities of art, not only what you do with your hands, but also music or literature or telling stories or dancing and so on. They develop those functions that we need for happiness. Actually, we know we need those functions for being a happy person and being a good person for others, and being able to inhibit our inhibit things that we shouldn't want to to do or use, and so on. So actually, I think what's the contribution? Art lessons in schools can be really different. Maybe they don't give to the student the possibility and maybe even the time to achieve what they could in these lessons. I think that curricula of art, the national curriculum of art is one of the best curriculums in Estonia. I think other subjects are not so well developed, but still we as a psychologist, as educational psychologist, I often hear from parents that their children get some kind of, they were kind of violated in art lessons because they get weird feedback that they do something wrong and it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to look like this, and maybe and that kind of process is like doing art, as somebody already mentioned. It takes so much time also to understand what do you want to do, how it is a process of trying out and searching what I want to do or what I can do or and it's a process of making mistakes. And my hope is that in that kind of projects you describe, children might have more time for discovering, because making art is actually also building your own identity in all, and especially in teenager age. Also in younger age, it's from the birth, they build through art activities, they build their identity and they build their brain. But especially in teenager years, it's so important that if they discover that this is something for them, it might be actually, I don't know, how is it, kuidas on päästerõngas, the life, this thing you have when you fall into the water. You know what I mean. Yeah. This wrong thing. Yeah, I think this might be the contribution.
Yeah, there's also a sense of, I mean, unlearning, right? I mean, children, I think maybe someone said that it takes some time for children to come into a state where they can feel like they feel that they are safe to rest into the situation. And I'm wondering, isn't that a lot about because they have lived in life along adults for some time? I mean, they take because there's so much order in certain ways, and that inhibits children, of course. And of course, then you have to give them sometimes okay, now you have told you this for so long, but now in this space you can do it differently. And somehow when art art really happens, I guess, when you just surrender into to surrender into a space where you don't have rules for yourself, or doesn't have this container that you have to exist in. And then I think this saying about that an artistic idea is almost like replicating or stealing your own ideas, because in one way, the intuition of something that a child has when they start to do something is almost as if time works differently. It's almost like they're getting to see the final artwork, but then they're sort of getting a hint of what it is they're doing. And then, 1 hour later, maybe they have done something. It's almost like they saw that, before, and then they just finishing it somehow. But they got that sort of inspiration. Inspiration was something that is not to do with that particular person, but is something that is just in there in a way. And I think, yeah.
I think it's interesting what we talk about. It seems that we are touching upon the very important connection between pre-planning and not planning, and how though they are connected, and how they coexist, and how they sometimes coexist in harmony, and how they sometimes in conflict with one another. I mean, I'm a living paradox of that totally, because, I mean, for example, we have those goggles, which is not VR, as Hanna-Liis said, and they normally evoke images, because we listen to three-dimensional sound at the same time, so they normally evoke images, like inner images in grown-ups, in children, very often. But the thing is, that is a type of flexibility you have in a relationship to a recording, and that recording is quite choreographed and super structured. And then behind the scenes, the way we work is like sitting by the computer, planning a lot, sitting through the night and editing sound. And that is kind of almost like the backside of the whole thing. And it's a bit odd. Like, how do we, and I almost felt during this process now that something doesn't really resonate in the way I work and the way that it's being kind of, so how much is it about giving space to someone to be free, that we need to set the structure, and can we overdo that, or can we underdo it?
We've been now talking more about what art can give to educational context and educational field, but maybe to reverse this question also, what have you learned from your initiative and your projects, from participating children, youth, but also teachers, families, maybe the system as such? What are you bringing back to your own practice, maybe?
Yeah, no, it's, our way into this has been creating experiences or structure for adults to, in a way, find their, be in touch with their child within them. And And so now when working with this project, particularly focusing on children, it was like twisting it around for us a little bit. So and I think we went 2 travels from Stockholm to here, like workshops with families. And during these workshops, I think we started to, things are starting to sort of like come up a bit more clear for us, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. So the workshops, I realized they were the sacred part of the process, because we met in a quite intimate setting, in the workshop setting. We met with the families. So like, how do we work with a parent and a child together? And these interactions was the most moving thing that affected me the most. So one parent mentioned that because in one part of the work, you're actually being also guided by, potentially if you do this work in pairs, and then you reverse the role, so the child will guide you while you're wearing goggles. So you have to give all your trust to your child, which you cannot see, you just feel their hand. And someone mentioned that that she almost believed that her child was held by someone to guide her. There's something that we also, not believing that the child can actually guide us somewhere. There's a beauty of also being taken care. I let go in the hands of my own child. They take care of me, which has also, I think, gave me a bit further on now, like we zoom out in time. Yeah, so existential layer to that. You know, in a family, we have children. One day, maybe the children will also take care of us. So there's this sort of quite painful but a moving aspect to that. That's something I really took with me. But also watching at one of the workshops, there were 3 generations. So a daughter, a mother, and the grandmother as well.
I would maybe address this question also to Hanna in the context of this project as a whole. What do this educational field and maybe children and youth bring back to contemporary art field?
Yes. Wow, so much. I think I just try to convey what comes to my mind first, but I think there have been these kinds of moments where I had like aha moments have been quite a lot, and it's quite actually like I feel like I've somehow the project has deconstructed and reconstructed me many times, and I'm still figuring out what it all means, because right now it's very fresh also from the exhibition opening. But what I definitely have taken with me is that the teachers particularly that I have met and have been able to have conversations with, they have been so much more open to this process that I thought. I thought I have to start convincing a lot of teachers, but really we found such partners in teachers and such encouragement from teachers that they want us to keep going, and they feel like that this really does help diversify the educational process for them, and that kind of, you know, just encouragement and positive feedback, also very constructive feedback when things went wrong, was something, such a motivation, I think, for the whole team. And we try to share it with our whole team, because not everyone can be, you know, in the moment with these teachers. But I think that was something that has been carrying us. But then also maybe more from a very practical point of view is that I learned the teachers very clearly showed me the barriers that they have to actually get to a moment where they can, you know, take part in this. That even when you're, you know, in South Estonia in a school that isn't in Tartu, it might not seem South Estonia like such a big place, but actually it's hard to get physically to a museum, you know, to convince parents or directors or whoever decides for the transport money or the time to get just away from school for that long to be in a museum. So we really learned and worked a lot on how to make more flexible systems where we can go to school, or where we can create materials that teachers can use independently, so that it doesn't always rely on the exhibition or the artist being there, even though, of course, that is wonderful if that's possible. And that's something that I think I'm still in process, because I think there's a lot that has grown out of this project that we still need to make even more available. And I think there's potential for that. Like, how can this class photographs project, for example, be accessible for teachers if the artist isn't always, or like, you know, how can you go on from that independently if you need to?
Grete, do you see that our educational system is willing to actually accommodate this kind of initiatives, and what does it take to actually make space, literally and physically and mentally, for those?
Actually, I think that we often hear that education doesn't want to have so many changes, but actually, for me, if something is alive, it changes all the time because the environment changes all the time. So everything that's alive should change, and consider change as an essential part of it. So if education doesn't want to change to accommodate that kind of process, projects, and also maybe allow students to see other views, especially students who maybe aren't in the center and like overloaded from different kind of information. For me, I know that the curriculum of this SPEAK curriculum is changing also all the time, but sometimes how it applies is not yet there. And actually what I wanted to say before also, what popped into my mind, that why that kind of projects are can be really, really good for students is that there won't be any grades, I guess. And we are openly or hidden, Estonia is quite grade addicted. And we know from numerous studies that it's really bad for the mental health of students and for the motivation of students and for deep learning of students. So there is no good outcome of it. So the more there are projects that are grade-free, and so I think it's not only the art field where that kind of things should enter the school, and the school should be, education should be more permeable, like not so many boundaries between other kind of things we can do and people we can discover topics with. And also, as we know that the Estonian teachers are overloaded with work, sometimes without any reason, sometimes they do things they shouldn't do, or they are like forced to do things they shouldn't. But if there are that kind of things, and if this curriculum is more free, and we can interpret things that they do in that project as a part of curriculum, then I think everybody could be more happy.
Yeah, it's sort of, I totally agree. It's, we have a 9-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter. The 20-year-old daughter, she just graduated from her school in Sweden. And all through her later years in school, she was struggling so much. She had ADHD and is dyslexic. So she's like so much struggling with just managing to have a okay level of grade. But I mean, it also, I from having in a way also grown up in that way, having like ADHD, I understand that if it would be a bit different, the sort of format of education, it would have been easier for sure. And it's also, I'm thinking these days, like this education system is so weird, especially with a really accelerating technology. You're preparing children for the school, like the world today, actually like the world actually how it was in a way, but you're not preparing them for anything in the future. And that's why I think, like, why don't schools have more psychology in every aspect of, psychology and art, or like flexibility of thinking and adaptation in every subject. I mean, because the world is, if people are going to survive in the future world, it's going to be have a lot of resilience towards like psychological resilience, and also being in a way like the expectations. You cannot have any expectations of what life or world would be like. You have to really, but to cultivate still values within that, of course,
And there is one thing we can predict, is that what we need in the future is ability to cooperate and be friendly and be for other people, because when things go bad, as they will, and at the moment we train students to not to cooperate, but with compete with each other with this grading system. And actually it goes too deep in their minds, this competition and competitive. So one thing we know we need is cooperation, and maybe that kind of projects also are cooperation centered.
Thank you. And as a kind of wrap-up question, because time is really merciless here today. I maybe would like to ask Hanna that now the project is kind of, it's not over, but in a way it's moving towards that word. How do you, or will you keep doing this? Because our cultural production is very much like project-based, do your project, move on. How do you keep coming back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, that is a big question, and I do have a few ideas on that, and I actually thank you for asking, because I didn't get to that in my presentation. But, well, first of all, because the exhibition just opened at the museum, this is something that we have as a tool now, and we do try to help children in both in terms of the school program, but also families to get there. That's one big work that still is ahead of us, and we're working both with education programs and different family events and public programs with that. But when that exhibition finishes and we don't have that big tool, I think what we do have is these connections, these contacts that we have built. We also have, exactly as you asked, this new knowledge that we gained and we can put into our practice. And my big hope is that the educational work can live on. I mean, we have also resources, materials that we have created that will be talked about more in the second half of this day. But I would really like to work on making sure that, for example, the Tartu Art Museum's education programs are part of the city's order, like the funded education learning, because it's not right now, and I think it should be. And I think we have a really good moment now to really push for that this is also important enough for the municipality to pay for that to an extent. We have the research, we have the proof, to show that it's needed, the teachers want to participate, and that, a lot of the kids who have participated in this project came to the art museum for the first time in their life. Hundreds of children came for the first time in their life. They didn't have access to any art museum before. And, it should change. So I don't know exactly how to fund all of this, but I think that I have a big drive in myself to at least say that it's important, and to keep, pushing for that, because I will still be a curator, and, with all of this amazing luggage that I want to, carry with me. Yeah.
Thank you, and good luck. We are keeping an eye on it, definitely. But I would conclude this little roundtable here now. Thank you, and let's applaud to the participants.